Everyone, let me tell you something powerful. Choosing yourself is not selfish, it's survival. In a world that constantly tells you to fit in, to belong, to be in a relationship just to feel whole, I want you to hear this loud and clear: you are already whole. Living alone doesn't mean being lonely. It means being free, free from drama, free from compromise that kills your spirit, and free from giving your energy to people who don't value it. When you choose yourself first, something incredible happens. You discover your voice, you fall in love with your peace, you stop begging for breadcrumbs of affection from people who don't even deserve a seat at your table. You don't need someone else to make you feel worthy. You are your own validation, you are your own cheerleader, you are your own home, because sometimes the most toxic relationship isn't with another person, it's with the part of you that thinks you're not enough on your own. Living alone teaches you how to walk away. It teaches you how to stop settling. It teaches you that silence is better than fake love, and peace is more powerful than attention. Living alone builds inner strength in ways that are often underestimated. In a world that constantly pushes us toward connection and companionship, we often forget the deep personal growth that happens when we learn to stand on our own. When you live alone, you're no longer dependent on someone else to pick you up when you fall, motivate you when you're down, or guide your every move. You begin to realize that everything you've ever needed is already within you. You are no longer waiting for someone to rescue you, to validate your decisions, or to make you feel complete. Instead, you become the hero of your own story. In solitude, you face your thoughts head on. There's no one to distract you from your fears, your insecurities, or your dreams. You come face to face with your inner critic and your inner champion, and you learn to navigate both. That process creates resilience. You stop running from discomfort and begin embracing it as a teacher. You build emotional muscle every time you push through loneliness or doubt and still choose to show up for yourself. That's strength, not the kind that yells or demands attention, but the kind that stands tall quietly, even when the world isn't watching. When you live alone, every decision is yours. You decide what to eat, how to spend your time, how clean or messy your space should be. These may seem like small things, but they teach you responsibility and accountability. There's no one to blame, no one to rely on for structure or support. You become your own support system. That kind of self-reliance creates a quiet, unshakable confidence. It tells you, I can handle anything. Not because life becomes easier, but because you know you have the strength to endure whatever comes your way. Living alone forces you to grow up in the best way possible. You become more disciplined, more focused, and more aware. You learn how to manage your time, your emotions, your energy. You realize that your happiness is your responsibility. That's a powerful truth. You stop expecting others to fix your problems or fill your emptiness. Instead, you fill your own cup, and from that overflow, you eventually give to others, not out of need, but out of strength. One of the greatest things about living alone is the ability to hear your own voice clearly. Without outside opinions clouding your mind, you begin to trust your intuition more. You develop clarity about who you are, what you believe in, and where you're going. That clarity becomes your compass. It helps you make better decisions, set better boundaries, and choose better relationships in the future. You're no longer afraid of being alone because you've discovered how empowering it actually is. And here's the truth: life will challenge you whether you're alone or not. But when you've built that inner strength, those challenges won't break you. They'll refine you. You'll bend, but you won't crumble. You'll fall, but you'll rise stronger. You'll walk through the fire, but you won't lose yourself in the flames. Because living alone has taught you how to hold yourself up. It has taught you that you are enough, even without applause, even without company, even without anyone saying, I'm proud of you. You learn to be proud of yourself. That's what inner strength looks like. Not perfection, not fearlessness, but the courage to face life alone and still smile at your reflection, knowing you've got your own back. That's a strength no relationship can give you. and no one can ever take away. You protect your peace when you choose to live alone, and that decision becomes one of the most powerful acts of self-love you can ever make. In a world filled with constant noise, pressure, and emotional demands from others, solitude becomes your sanctuary. It becomes the space where your mind can breathe, your soul can recharge, and your heart can rest without fear of being misunderstood, manipulated, or drained. When you live alone, you control the energy around you. There's no unpredictable tension from someone else's bad mood. There's no need to tiptoe around someone's insecurities or constantly adjust your own emotions to avoid conflict. You don't have to argue, explain yourself, or fight for space to be heard. That freedom from emotional chaos is not just comforting, it's healing. You finally get a chance to hear your own thoughts, feel your emotions without judgment, and move through your day without unnecessary emotional weight pulling you down. Peace isn't just about quiet, it's about emotional clarity. When you're alone, your thoughts settle. You're not constantly reacting to someone else's energy. You become more present, more mindful, and more intentional. You start to notice how certain things make you feel, what truly matters to you, and what drains you. That awareness allows you to make better choices, not just in how you live, but in who you allow into your life. Because once you taste true peace, you won't tolerate anything that disrupts it. Living alone also helps you develop emotional boundaries that many people never get the chance to build. Without the noise of other people's needs constantly in your ear, you finally learn how to prioritize your own. You stop people pleasing. You stop apologizing for needing space, silence, or solitude. You begin to understand that your peace is not something you owe to others. It's something you owe to yourself. You realize that protecting your peace isn't rude or selfish. It's essential. It's how you survive, thrive, and grow into the version of yourself you're meant to be. And here's something most people overlook. Peace is powerful. It gives you the mental clarity to think deeply, the emotional space to heal old wounds, and the stillness to reconnect with your purpose. While the world chases noise, distraction, and validation, you find contentment in calm. And in that calm, you become stronger, you become sharper, you become more focused on what truly matters in your life. That kind of power doesn't come from external relationships. It comes from within. When you choose to live alone, you no longer have to compromise your values or lower your standards just to keep someone around. You don't have to accept toxic behaviors for the sake of company. You don't have to pretend to be okay when you're not, just to keep the peace in a relationship that was never peaceful to begin with. Instead, you create your own environment, one where you are safe, respected, and centered. That environment allows you to grow, to rest, to create, and to thrive without emotional interference. You begin to realize that solitude is not emptiness, it's fullness, full of potential, peace, and purpose. And once you find that, you'll never again allow someone into your life who brings chaos where you've built calm. You'll guard your peace like a treasure because that's exactly what it is. Not everyone deserves access to it. Not everyone deserves a seat in the life you've worked so hard to build. So yes, living alone protects your peace. It gives you the space to reset, to recharge, and to rise. It teaches you that your emotional well-being matters and that you never have to sacrifice it for love, approval, or attention, because real peace isn't found in another person. It's found in the quiet strength of choosing yourself. And once you have that, you have everything. You discover who you really are when you live alone. It's in the quiet moments, without the noise of other people's opinions or expectations, that your true self begins to rise to the surface. So much of our identity is shaped by the environments we're placed in, by family, relationships, friends, and even societal pressure. But when you're alone, all of that fades into the background. What's left is you, raw, real, and unfiltered. For the first time in maybe forever, you get to meet yourself without interruption. Living alone gives you space to reflect on your life, your choices, your desires, and your fears. You begin to notice your habits, your triggers, your patterns. You start asking yourself the deep questions you might have been avoiding for years. Who am I, really? What do I want? What am I passionate about? What have I been doing just to please others? These aren't easy questions, but they are necessary. And it's only in solitude that you truly have the space to explore them without pressure or distraction. You start to realize that some of the things you thought you loved were never really yours. They were borrowed from others. Maybe you went after a certain career because your family expected it. Maybe you stayed in a relationship because it felt safe, even though it didn't feel right. Maybe you surrounded yourself with people who kept you small because you were afraid to outgrow them. Living alone breaks those illusions. It removes the safety nets and forces you to sit with your truth. And the beautiful part is, your truth begins to feel like home. As you spend time alone, you reconnect with your natural rhythm. You stop rushing, stop comparing, stop pretending. You wake up when you want, eat what you like, decorate your space however it feels right. These small choices might seem insignificant, but they slowly stitch together a powerful realization. You are allowed to live life on your own terms. You don't need to ask permission to be yourself. That realization is life-changing. It shifts your entire mindset from pleasing others to honoring yourself. Self-discovery isn't always pretty. Sometimes being alone means facing the parts of yourself that you've tried to hide, your insecurities, your regrets, your emotional wounds. But this is where growth happens. When there's no one else around to distract you, you begin the process of healing. You learn to sit with discomfort and turn it into wisdom. You learn to forgive yourself for past mistakes. You learn to speak to yourself with kindness instead of criticism. These are the building blocks of self-worth, and they can only be constructed in silence. Living alone also gives you time to pursue what truly lights you up. You can read, write, create, rest, and explore without needing anyone else's approval. You begin to take risks that feel authentic to you. You try new things not because someone told you to, but because your curiosity guides you. That's freedom. The freedom to evolve into your truest self without judgment. You stop being a character in someone else's story and start becoming the author of your own. Eventually, you come to a place where you're no longer afraid of being alone, because you realize you were never really alone in the first place. You've got you, and that relationship, the one you build with yourself in the quiet, becomes the foundation for everything else in your life. From that place of self-understanding, you attract better people, make better decisions, and live a better life. So yes, living alone reveals the real you, the one that's been buried beneath expectations, fears, and noise. And once you uncover that person, you'll never want to lose them again. You'll protect them, love them, and let them grow, because now you know who you are. And that's the most powerful thing in the world. You stop settling for less when you begin to live alone and truly enjoy your own company. It's a quiet shift at first. You begin to notice how much you used to tolerate, how many relationships, conversations, and situations you endured simply because you were afraid of being alone. But now, with solitude as your foundation, you begin to see things clearly. You no longer feel the need to accept half-hearted love, broken promises, or people who only show up when it's convenient for them. You've created something better for yourself, peace, clarity, and a deep sense of self-worth. And once you've tasted that, settling feels like betrayal. Living alone teaches you to raise your standards. Not in a superficial or unrealistic way, but in a way that honors your value. You understand what it feels like to come home to a space that is calm, nurturing, and entirely your own. You don't have to negotiate your needs, shrink your personality, or compromise your boundaries just to make someone else comfortable. And because of that, your tolerance for unhealthy behavior drops. You start to see through manipulation. You recognize emotional immaturity. You spot red flags not as warnings to ignore, but as signs to walk away. That awareness comes from within. It's the gift of finally knowing your worth. When you live alone, You also start to enjoy your solitude more than shallow company. You no longer crave validation from others the way you once did. You don't need someone to text you every hour just to feel secure. You're not desperate for attention or desperate to be chosen. Why? Because you've already chosen yourself. You understand now that being alone isn't something to be ashamed of. It's something to be proud of. You're not waiting around hoping someone sees your value. You already see it yourself, and that changes everything. There comes a moment where you realize you'd rather eat alone at peace than eat with someone who makes you feel invisible. You'd rather sleep alone in silence than share a bed with someone who makes you feel alone in their presence. That's when you know you've stopped settling. You no longer chase love that hurts, attention that fades, or people who confuse your loyalty for weakness. You know what you bring to the table, and you're not afraid to sit alone if it means protecting your peace and your heart. This transformation doesn't mean you'll never love again or that relationships are bad. It simply means that your relationship with yourself is now the blueprint. If someone enters your life, they must add to your joy, not become the source of it. You're no longer looking for someone to complete you because you've already done that work on your own. Now, love is a choice, not a need. It's a partnership, not a rescue mission. And here's the beauty of it. Once you stop settling, you make space for what's truly meant for you. Whether that's a relationship, a career, a dream, or a friendship, it will meet you at your level. No more lowering your standards just to keep someone close. No more convincing anyone to stay. The right people will respect your boundaries. They will match your energy. They will see your worth without needing a reminder. But none of that is possible until you stop accepting less than what you deserve. So yes, living alone shifts your perspective. It empowers you to say no without guilt, to walk away without fear, and to stand alone without feeling incomplete. And in doing so, you reclaim your power. You no longer beg to be loved. You simply become someone who is no longer willing to accept anything less than real, honest, and unconditional love, starting with the love you give yourself. Self-love becomes your foundation when you begin to live alone and focus on yourself fully. It's not just about treating yourself kindly or repeating affirmations. It's about rebuilding your life around the truth that you are enough, exactly as you are. Living alone gives you the space and freedom to prioritize your emotional and mental well-being without distraction, without guilt, and without compromise. You begin to nurture yourself in ways you may have never experienced before, and that becomes the most powerful shift in your life. When you're not constantly giving your energy away to relationships, obligations, or people who drain you, you begin to pour that energy back into yourself. You start to notice your own needs, your desires, your passions, things that may have been pushed aside to make space for others. You wake up with the opportunity to ask yourself, what do I need today? And more importantly, you give yourself permission to answer honestly. That's what self-love looks like. It's not just a feeling, it's a practice. It's daily choices. It's showing up for yourself even when it's hard. You begin to set boundaries, not because you're trying to keep people out, but because you're finally protecting your energy. You learn to say no without apology. You learn to rest without guilt. You realize that you don't have to earn love through overgiving or overextending yourself. You simply deserve love, and that starts with the love you give to yourself. When you're alone, there's no one there to distract you from the truth of how you treat yourself. And for many, that's the wake-up call, realizing that you've been kinder to others than you've ever been to yourself. That changes when you're alone, because you have the time and space to learn how to be your own best friend. Living alone also means that your validation comes from within. You're not waiting for someone to tell you you're doing great or that you're lovable. You start to feel those things from inside out. You become proud of yourself for the little things, for keeping your space clean, for showing up to your goals, for surviving your low days. And over time, your confidence becomes rooted in who you are, not in what others think of you. That confidence is real, it's stable, it's yours. Love also transforms how you respond to failure and pain. You begin to treat your mistakes not as reasons to hate yourself, but as lessons to grow from. You become more patient, more compassionate, and more forgiving with yourself. When you fall, you don't stay down. You lift yourself with grace. That's the difference. You stop being your own enemy and start becoming your biggest supporter. Living alone forces you into that role, and eventually you grow to love it. And as your foundation of self-love gets stronger, everything else in your life begins to shift. You make better choices because you're no longer operating from fear, insecurity, or neediness. You stop chasing love and start attracting it. You stop clinging to toxic relationships and start seeking out people who reflect the love you've already found within. You become someone who is whole, and from that wholeness, you create a life that is healthy, fulfilling, and joyful. This is what living alone teaches you. It shows you how to sit with yourself, how to care for yourself, how to honor yourself. And when that becomes your norm, you'll never again settle for anything that requires you to abandon who you are. You'll walk into every room knowing your worth. You'll enter every relationship knowing your value, because now you're no longer looking to be completed. You are already complete. Self-love is no longer something you hope for. It's who you are. It's the ground you walk on. It's the life you live. The right people are attracted to your energy when you've learned to be whole on your own. It may sound simple, but it's one of the most powerful truths about personal growth and self-love. When you stop chasing relationships out of loneliness or fear, and instead begin focusing on your own healing, purpose, and peace, you naturally begin to shift your energy. You no longer approach life from a place of desperation or need. You begin to radiate confidence, authenticity, and self-worth, and that energy is magnetic. People can sense when you're no longer looking for someone to fill a void. They can feel it when you walk into a room with your head held high, not because you're arrogant, but because you've done the inner work. You know who you are. You've faced your darkness, learned your lessons, and embraced your flaws. That kind of self-awareness and inner strength attracts people who are also whole, or at least working on their own healing too. It's no longer about surface-level attraction. It's about alignment. When you're living alone and enjoying your solitude, you stop entertaining people who bring chaos, drama, or inconsistency. Why? Because your life is already peaceful. You've created a space that nurtures you, that reflects your values, that feels like home, not just physically, but emotionally. Anyone who enters your world must match that frequency. They don't have to be perfect, but they must come with honesty, respect, and good intentions. You no longer have room for energy that drains you. You're not interested in fixing or chasing anyone. You're only available for connections that elevate your life, not complicate it. There's a calm that comes from knowing you don't need anyone to validate you. That calm becomes your filter. You don't get caught up in toxic patterns because you're not operating from emptiness anymore. You're not impressed by shallow words or temporary attention. You want real connection. You want people who see your soul, not just your surface. And those kinds of people are drawn to your energy when it's grounded in self-love. They see how you move, how you carry yourself, how you protect your peace, and they respect it. Another powerful shift happens. Your relationships become more intentional. You're no longer afraid to walk away from things that don't serve you, even if they're familiar. You know now that your peace is worth more than forced conversations or half-hearted love. And because of that strength, you attract people who are clear, consistent, and genuine. You no longer attract people based on your wounds. You attract them based on your growth. When your energy shifts, your circle shifts. You find yourself surrounded by people who support you, who celebrate your wins, who listen without judgment, who love you as you are. And you don't have to beg for that love. It flows naturally because it matches the love you've already cultivated within yourself. The universe responds to your frequency. When your vibration is high, you call in people, opportunities, and experiences that reflect that same level. Living alone gives you the space to discover that you are already enough. And from that space of abundance, you stop searching for people to complete you. Instead, you meet others as equals. Two whole people walking side by side, not leaning on each other to stand. That's what real connection looks like. It's not about dependence, it's about resonance. So yes, the right people are attracted to your energy. Not when you're trying to be what they want, but when you're fully aligned with who you truly are. You don't have to chase, you don't have to beg. Just keep becoming the best version of yourself, and those who are meant for you will recognize you by your light. Conclusion. Here's a powerful conclusion for the title. Choose yourself first, why living alone is better than any relationship. In the end, choosing yourself first is not about isolation. It's about liberation. It's about realizing that your worth doesn't depend on someone else's presence, approval, or love. Living alone teaches you how to build strength from within, protect your peace, discover your true self, and stop settling for anything less than what you deserve. It lays the foundation for real self-love and aligns your energy with the people and experiences that are meant for you, not those you had to chase. Solitude doesn't mean something is missing. Sometimes it means everything unnecessary has been removed. In that stillness, you find clarity. In that space, you meet your most authentic self. And once you do, you'll never trade your peace, power, or self-respect for temporary comfort again. So choose yourself. Not once, not just when it's convenient, but every single day. Because when you learn to live alone and love it, you finally understand this truth. You were never incomplete. You were just waiting to come home to yourself.